Welcome to the White Sox REKAP Podcast here on the REKAP YouTube channel and wherever you subscribe to podcasts. I'm Ryan McGuffey. Who are the White Sox getting in manager Will Venable? Why, after 222 losses in 2 seasons, is Venable the right guy to turn things around on the South Side? We know the pedigree. We know the list of Hall of Fame names that he's learned under, from Theo Epstein to Joe Maddon, and most recently with Bruce Bochy. The pair won a World Series together in 2023, and now we dial up Bruce Bochy for this edition of the podcast to get his thoughts on why Will Venable is the right guy to lead the White Sox for now and into the future. The 4-time World Series champion manager joins me on this edition of the White Sox REKAP Podcast, and it starts right now. We welcome in Bruce Bochy to the White Sox REKAP Podcast. Future Hall of Fame manager, 3-time World Series champion with the San Francisco Giants, and most recently with the 2023 Texas Rangers. Boch, really appreciate you hopping on here to talk about the newest manager of the Chicago White Sox, Will Venable. I know he served as your associate manager the last 2 seasons. So, the White Sox, as you know, it's been a long two plus years, 222 losses. You know how those losses can wear on you. What are the White Sox getting with Will Venable, and why is he the right guy to turn this around?
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to miss him. He did so much for me in my 2 years here. He was just a pleasure to work with. But you're going to get a strong leader. You're going to get a guy that is going to do, I think, a terrific job and getting things changed or turned around. He's going to help build a culture there that is about winning. And, the thing I love about Will, he's got a calmness to him. You'll see that. But yeah, he's going to be demanding that you play the game right. If not, you'll hear from him. But he's got the acumen to handle both sides of the game as far as looking at the game and how the game can change, during that game. But also the analytics. He's got a good feel for that. So he's got a good feel for both. He's got a balance, and he was very helpful for me, even during the game. I called him my safety valve. If I had a question, or I'd say, hey, Will, am I leaving something out? And he was on top of everything. He's ready. He's ready. He's wore a lot of different hats, as you know, coaching the bases and working for different managers, but I think it's his time, and I think he's going to do a terrific job for you.
Yeah, you look around. You look at the back of his baseball card, so to speak, and take the career out of it, and let's just talk about the guys, the mentors such as you that he had leading into this position. Theo Epstein hires him as soon as his career's over to be in the front office. He's under Joe Maddon here in Chicago. He goes to Boston under Alex Cora, then he's with you. What does that mean to have those type of leaders as you get prepared to kind of sit in that seat for the first time?
Yeah, I think it's a valuable experience for a young manager that, that's what he wants to do. That's what he aspires to do. And so he's going to get some different ideas, some different thoughts. We're all, different how we do things, whether it's Joey or Joe or myself. And he's going to take something from everybody. What he likes, maybe what he doesn't like, because he's going to be his guy. But still, there's nothing like getting reps in anything you do, whether you're taking swings or throwing a bullpen, coaching or managing. And that's seeing the game, every day and maybe through different eyes, which he's had that opportunity. So, and I could just see, him grow with me in the last 2 years. I could see a difference after, we won our championship, and he was right on with my thinking. The next year, he knew what was probably going through my head. And so he covered me. And I can't thank him enough for that. So he'll take all these things, and it's going to make him even a better manager. And the fact that, he learned from everybody, and not just the guys as he was coaching. He's going to take, when he played for different managers, and he had a nice career in major leagues, and, he did some good things. He could run the bases. He played outfield, a good hitter. And so, he's got a good feel from the player's side and from the coaching side.
Obviously, his dad was in the game, and you were kind of leaving San Diego when he was on his way into San Diego, but you've spent so much time in the game. When do you look at a player, and I don't even know if you do or if you can, but when do you see a player in the big leagues and you're like, you know what, that guy I could see sitting in my chair one day. Do you ever see that?
Well, you know what? I'll be honest. I'm not on the other team so much, but sure, there's a occasional guy that stands out. You just watch how he plays the game. You go, I could see him, but it was more guys with me. I could tell. Brad Osmus, for example, Mark Kotze, Phil Nevin. They were students of the game. They ask questions. Why did I do this? And so, yeah, but with Will, I never had a chance to have him play for me, but he's very professional. I knew that. I heard none but great things about him with his reputation. And one thing, when I retired, I'll never forget when he was running out to first base. He's coaching for the Cubs. He came over to the dugout and shook my hand and said, "Congrats on a great career." And because we had our battles. He used to get on me and goes, "Yeah, I knew when I was coming up late in the game, you're bringing in Javi Lopez." And but anyway, we had some good battles against each other.
The generations of players that you've coached, obviously, in 2024, there's so much, at least from a social media and phone and video and analytics, and everything's always on at all time. How do you believe a former player can resonate differently in today's game than maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Or, I mean, well, look, you were a former player. We've seen former players manage forever and always in baseball, but I guess a different version of that question would be why does being a former player matter for this generation of baseball? And can it matter a little differently for a White Sox team that's kind of searching for an identity?
Yeah, I think it definitely can because as a former player, you've been through the ups and downs. You have a lot of experience to draw on. With your personal experiences, whether it's a team collectively or you individually, but also in the fact that in today's game, with analytics involved so much, players now they're as in tune with it as the coaches because they want to know. They enjoy looking at what the spin rate or their swing and everything. So they actually have a feel for that. But I think in today's time, it's the mental side that's probably even more important than what it used to be because the social media you're talking about, how you scrutinize and the information that you get. And, the game was a little bit simpler when I came up, whether as a player or even as a manager. I mean, yeah, we had analytics, but not to the degree it was. And I did a chart and all that. And so, these players are, they just have a great awareness of what these players go through. And so, he's not that old and he's in terrific shape. And so he's going to be so relatable to these guys in a lot of different aspects of the game.
This is no disrespect to maybe some of the staffs that have been in Chicago over the last, 5 to 10 years, but you've talked already a few times on this podcast about how much you're going to miss Will and how close he sat next. I mean, he was literally your right-hand man. How important is a staff for a first-time manager? I know it's important to you, but for a first-time manager to get the staff right.
Well, I think it's critical to your success. I really do. Those guys, they're the ones out there. They're the grunts that are doing a lot of the work because you have a lot of demands on your time as a manager, and Will's going to see that. So there's times when he'll be dealing with the media or front office, maybe even ownership, things like that. So you got to have a trust there, but you also have to have guys that are qualified to get done what you want to get done, and he'll be good at that. He'll be good at delegating and keeping everybody involved. We talked about that, and so I just really believe that's what's the key to getting you off to a good start. Because I go back, my first year, I had a guy, Davey Lopes, at first base, and I didn't know Davey. We got him from Baltimore, and so I said, I'm going to do everything. If this doesn't work, I'm going to do it my way. And so and then I'm sitting there thinking, I said, well, Lopes knows a hell of a lot more about base running, stealing bases than I do. And also, Davey just did a great job at, taking some, a load off my back, with things in the clubhouse. And so those guys got to have his back, and they got to help him and support him. And also be honest with them, that you want your staff to be up front and say, hey, we think this is what we should do, or if there's a certain move in the game, and then all of you learn together and come together. And so my hope is he'll between the front office and they'll get the staff that they want.
Just a couple more for you. Piggybacking off what you're just saying there. I know Will was in the mix last year for a couple of jobs, and then he took himself out of consideration. When you bring yourself back into the mix, when you go back, those decades ago when you were getting in that seat for the first time, when do you know that you're ready? And do you ever know until you actually get the job and manage in your first game?
Yeah, I don't know if you ever know. I mean, you got to have the confidence, so you got to believe, but still, you get the unknown factor. And, with me, coming up through the minor leagues, I managed in the minor leagues, and I don't think I would have been ready without doing that with my time down there, because not just with running the game, but learning all the different personalities and how to handle certain situations. There's so many things that come up during a long season, so that was invaluable for me. But with Will, he has even mentioned he probably wasn't ready last year. He didn't feel ready, and it has to feel right. It has to feel like it's the right fit, and that's why he said, I think it's Will's time, because he really believes it, and he's in a good place. And you got to be honest with yourself, And I've been interviewing some guys that take Will's spot, and one of them even said, "Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to be a bench coach." Well, that's what you want them to be, is honest. And so, I'm sure that wasn't easy for him to say, but the only reason he said it, because I said, I have flexibility to move guys around. But getting back to what we're talking about with Will, I think he knows he's ready. He believes it. So that's the biggest part of it. Now he's going to find out, there's some things that he's still learning. We never arrive in this game. I'm still learning.
Is there a story that you can recall from, whether it's the World Series run last year, or even at a time maybe when you guys were struggling this year, or trying to get back on track, that stands out in your mind of like, man, like that's a good move. That's a good call, Will Venable.
Yeah. There were a couple of times he had a good feel how I wanted to do things. And occasionally, you do forget. And I would say, Will, am I leaving something out here? And he would point out, well, you can run Jankowski here, because, you still got coverage on the bench, and, you have them hitting in the spot that you want, things like that. But I mentioned this today talking to somebody. What I really liked about Will too is he was very helpful in keeping things straight, in the clubhouse and the dugout. And we had a little incident in the dugout this year, and the guy was a little frustrated and had some snaps going, and we were losing. It just the optics were not good, and he took care of it, because I said, okay, after the game I'll have to get him, but Will went down, got him, I took him underneath, and he handled it, and that's what I love about him.
Lastly, culture and accountability are two words, at least in Chicago, that have been thrown around the last couple of years, maybe ad nauseum in some ways. Like, I think it's easy to use those words when you're 80 games under 500, or it's just not going your way. And it's like, well, this culture sucks, or there's no accountability. But what is the fine line there between having a good culture and accountability, even when the season's not going your way?
Yeah, it's a great question. It really is. It's funny. I mean, this year we didn't win, and our culture wasn't as good. And just how it goes. These teams are winning. Their families, and they have a great culture. That's part of it. Yeah, but still, you can have a great culture. I think even though things aren't going well, and that's getting the guys to play as one, getting to play together, and caring about each other. And that's doing things in the right way, and that's what will do. He will get these guys to hold each other accountable too, not just him holding them accountable. He's heard me talk about it. It's such an important part of the game. I'm convinced it helped us win the World Series because these guys they did play as one, and and we got to work on it. Here in Texas, we got to get back. Because it just makes you stronger. And again, you saw the teams that won this year. That's what they talked about a lot. And when you lose as many games as you did in Chicago, hey, that stinks. I've been on losing teams. It's not a lot of fun. And but I'll say this. I didn't hear a lot of grumbling and stuff. So as bad as it was, as far as a record, it sounds like you got a lot of good character guys there.
Yeah, well, Boch, I'll tell you something. A couple of years ago, when there was rumblings that you wanted to come back and the White Sox had a vacancy, there was a hell of a lot of people that were saying, back up the Brinks truck and get Boch to Chicago. But it didn't happen. You landed in the perfect spot because you win a World Series right out of the gate. And, it couldn't happen to a better guy. You've been a great ambassador and person for the game. You've been good with me and you've been good with all of us. And wish you nothing but the best. Hope you get this thing turned around, health and success. You're feeling good. You still want to keep this going?
Yeah, I feel great. I got to keep it going so I get to winter meetings.
Yeah. The winter meetings with Boch. If you can close down a bar with Boch at the winter meetings, it's even if you don't land the Garrett Cole or the big prize match, that to me is just as good as any free agent signing sometimes. Boch, appreciate you joining me, man, and all
you
the
got it.
Have a great night.
Thanks for having me on. We'll see you.
Really good perspective from a 4-time World Series and future Hall of Fame manager, Bruce Bochy. I thank Boch for joining me here on this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast, here on the Recap Network on YouTube and wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. BA will be with me, Brian Anderson, on the next edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast. Until then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and look forward to hearing you and seeing you on the next episode.